Welcome to this video on work and power, where we calculate the work and power required to lift a box straight up, and then walk down a hallway carrying the box. You lift a 15 kilogram box straight up to a height of 1.2 meters in 1.35 seconds. While holding the box at this height of 1.2 meters, you walk 15 meters down a hallway. In part A, we'll calculate how much work is done on the box lifting it up. In part B, what power in watts is generated lifting the box. In part C, what power in horsepower is generated lifting the box. And in part D, we'll calculate how much work is done on the box while walking down the hallway. We start part A, calculating how much work is done by lifting the box up, with a diagram on the right. In this scenario, a person lifts a 15 kilogram box 1.2 meters off the floor in a time of 1.35 seconds. After lifting up the box, they walk 15 meters down a hallway. The forces acting on this box are the force that the person applies upwards on the box, counteracting gravity. Let's call this the force applied. Acting downwards on this box, we have the force of gravity. Let's call this Fg. Assuming the box is picked up at constant velocity, the force applied is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction to Fg. So the person is just counteracting the force of gravity downwards with the force they're applying upwards with their hands. In part A, to calculate how much work is done lifting the box up, we use our equation of work is equal to force times displacement. In our scenario, the force is the force applied by the hands holding the box in the air, which is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction to Fg, which we can calculate. So the work is equal to the force of gravity multiplied by the displacement. And the force of gravity is equal to the mass of the object multiplied by gravity. So the work done is equal to the mass of the object multiplied by the gravity multiplied by the displacement. Substituting our values, the work is equal to the mass of 15 kilograms multiplied by the value of gravity, 9.81 meters per second squared, multiplied by the displacement of the box, which is 1.2 meters. 15 multiplied by 9.81 multiplied by 1.20 gives a work equal to 176.58 joules. And we can round this to 177 joules. Now, although work is a scalar quantity and it does not have a direction, work can be positive or negative. And there's two ways to think about this. The first way to think about it is, are you giving the object energy or are you taking energy away? Because work is equal to the change in energy. In our scenario here, we're lifting a box up, so we're giving it potential energy. So we're doing positive work. A second way to think about this, if you've not seen the equation, work is equal to the change in energy, or you're not comfortable with this equation, is examining the directions of the force and the displacement. So let's just put the two quantities down here. In our example, the direction of the force is upwards. The hands push upwards on the box to counteract the force of gravity downwards. Likewise, the direction of the displacement is also upwards. When the direction of the force and the direction of the displacement are in the same orientation, we do positive work. Let's just quickly, as an aside, think about this person putting the box down. If the person's putting the box down, in that case, the direction of the force would still be upwards. The person would still be applying a force upwards, opposing the force of gravity downwards. However, in the scenario of putting the box down, the displacement would be downwards. In this scenario, our force and our displacement are in opposite orientations, so we're doing negative work. And this aligns with what we just discussed with the equation work is equal to change in energy. Because in the scenario of the person putting the box down, we're taking away potential energy. So work would be equal to a negative change in energy, so our work would be negative. So our work done lifting the box up is positive 177 joules, and let's just add the unrounded number over here so we can use it in future calculations. And now we're ready to solve part B. In part B, we're asked what power in watts is generated lifting the box. Looking at our formula sheet, power is equal to the amount of work per unit time. Now, because work is also equal to change in energy, power is actually a measure of the rate of transfer of energy. So power is equal to the amount of work divided by time. We can immediately substitute our values. So power is equal to the work we calculated in part A, 176.58 joules. And this is divided by the time it took to lift the box, 1.35 seconds. 176.58 joules divided by 1.35 seconds gives us a power of 130.8 watts. And this rounds to a final answer of 131 watts. What power in watts is generated lifting the box? 131 watts is generated. Let's just write this power on the side here, the unrounded value, so we can use it in part C. In part C, we're asked what power in horsepower is generated lifting the box. So this is just a unit conversion because 1 horsepower is equal to 746 watts. So we can take our power from part B, 130.8 watts, and we multiply this by 1 horsepower over 746 watts, because we want our watts on the top to cancel with our watts on the bottom, leaving us with our desired unit of horsepower. 130.8 divided by 746 equals 0.175 horsepower. What power in horsepower is generated lifting the box? It's 0.175 horsepower. And we're now ready to solve part D. In part D, we're asked how much work is done on the box walking down the hallway. So this is after the box is picked up, how much work is done walking it 15 meters down the hallway. To answer this question, let's blow up our diagram of our box right here. Remember from earlier that the equation for work is equal to the force multiplied by the displacement. But as we discussed earlier, we're only doing work if our orientation of our force and our displacement is in the same direction. So in this scenario, the orientation of our force is in the upwards direction. It's still the force applied that one has to apply upwards with their hands to oppose the force of gravity downwards. However, the direction of our displacement is sideways. We're moving sideways. Because our force and our displacement are in opposite or perpendicular orientations, we do no work. So the work in this scenario is equal to 0 joules because the force applied is upwards and the displacement is perpendicular sideways. Now I'll fully admit this is a very special scenario because if we were pushing the box across the floor at constant velocity, meaning there was a force of friction opposing our applied force, then we would have an applied force sideways as well as a displacement sideways. So we only have 0 work done when we're carrying a box, applying a force upwards, and carrying it sideways down a hallway. So how much work is done on the box walking it down the hallway? We're doing 0 joules of work. Thank you for watching this video where we calculated the work and power generated when somebody picks up a box and carries it down a hallway.